Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Healing and Freedom Journey. Mark DeJesus here, your brother from another mother, bringing you insights for your mental, emotional, and relationship health. If you're passionate about that and want to see healing and freedom experience in those areas of your life, you've come to the right place. Of course, if you love these materials, go to markdejesus.com. Please click on the like button, subscribe, and all that stuff. That helps out a lot. And I have so many free materials available that you can access. Go to my website, click on the topics button. They're alphabetized. They're distributed by topic. You can find more and more areas for your growth and for the healing process that you're navigating through in your journey. I've recently written a book called the OCD Healing Journey. It has been a big part of my healing and freedom journey in navigating and working through this. And I thought today what I could do is take a few moments to share how OCD infected my pastoral ministry. Now, I've had experience working in a larger church setting, larger staff, in that kind of situation. I've also had experience working in a very small church situation and a little bit in between. So what I thought I would do is take a couple things to share. I know there's many people in some kind of leadership position in church, or you pastor a church in some kind of setting, and it's challenging when you're trying to navigate through mental and emotional things you struggle through, which it's my conviction. Everybody's got issues. Everybody has things they're working and navigating through. Sometimes the only difference between people in the church is who's hiding it better. And so I like to encourage everyone, let's just recognize we all have areas of brokenness. We all have areas that we're navigating through. Let's break through the shame and let's all heal and grow together as brothers and sisters. But when you have obsessive compulsive battles in your life, your battles feel very strange. They feel very out of sorts and out of place with other people unless you find out others struggle with it. Well, I want to take a moment and talk about how did it impact the actual pastoral work that I did in any shepherding or overseeing in the day-to-day and just a typical life. How does OCD infect it? Now, I could go on, but I want to share about 6 areas that it infected my life and a couple thoughts on how I began to navigate freedom in those areas. So again, I've written the book, The OCD Healing Journey. This is a resource that I cannot emphasize enough. If you have battles in this area or you know someone that has it, get a copy of this because it'll help you walk a journey. And everything I'm about is about leading people into a journey, not just a quick fix, not just an overnight thing. The first thing that I would say about my pastoral experience where OCD, and there was an anxiety tied into that because OCDers have a lot of anxiety. It's centered around public speaking. It's centered around giving sermons. Now, this branches off into a lot of areas where I did a lot of singing, I led worship, I did a lot of solos. But let me just center in on sermon giving. Giving a sermon, if I was to summarize it, it felt like a life or death experience for me. I had incredible anxiety regarding any time I would give a sermon. So if you told me, hey, Mark, 6 months from now, we'd like you to give a message at such and such service, I would have a intense anxiety that would kind of come and go in waves. It would be this intrusive thing. Anytime I was having a joyful moment or anything, it would just be this intrusive anxiousness that would continually stay in my frame of view from that moment until 6 months when I would give the message. There was pressure in the preparation. There was pressure in the actual day. There would be relief when it was over. I could finally breathe. But then after a quick window of relief, I would be spinning about the next one. And so as a youth pastor, I would speak every week. I would be spinning from Wednesday to Wednesday to Wednesday. If I spoke in the adult service, I'd be spinning and spinning and spinning till that moment was happening. And this would follow me for quite some time. And then even if I was asked to speak at another church and there's just pressure. The problem is that a lot of times the messages I would give I'd get a lot of great feedback. And people would say, oh, that was wonderful, really blessed me. You know how I would take it? I would take it, oh, that was great. Your next one better be even better. So I responded even to compliments with more pressure. So there was no enjoyment in my communication gifting and talents and abilities. I've always had this ability to utilize my voice, and I'm passionate about explaining things to people, as you can see in this channel. But OCD stole the joy, stole the enjoyment. There were many times where I was asked to give a message the day of. I would just have this praying desire, oh, let something cancel it. Let a snowstorm or a hurricane come through, or at the last minute. There was a lot around this area that gave me tremendous anxiety. I know some days where I was ready to throw up, I'd be pacing back and forth. I spent a lot of time in my preparation. I remember, especially in the early years, I'd be practicing over and over again. I'd go from top to bottom, rehearsing the whole thing. Even in the preparation, as I'm typing, I'd have tension around my shoulders, my chest. It was excruciating. So sometimes I'd put off preparation because it was such a miserable experience. I had a lot of healing to work through in this area because I had to realize that I'd placed my identity around this, because the thought of it not going great meant that my value was less. Who I am was less. And this was the way that I felt loved, because many times I got a lot of affirmation. I get a lot of amens, and oh, this is great. And and all that affirmation's wonderful, but it gave me a dysfunctional feedback loop, because then my way of relating to the world, for me, I could only feel any sense of love or acceptance in that moment where I gave this well-polished message. And even then, the just right, never enough was always there, because I would nitpick something I said that didn't go right. I'd be, post-game recap, just kind of where things didn't measure up. So I had to go through a lot of what it meant to really, am I loved because I'm a good speaker, or am I loved because I'm God's son and I was made by him and I'm loved by him no matter what I do? I had to start learning to live from love rather than living for love. I had to learn to detox my performance-driven life. I had to learn that, no, everything doesn't rise and fall on this message I'm giving. I carried this weight on me as though heaven was here, and I had to take it so seriously, to the point that it was an ungodly burden that I carried. And I had to do a lot of work. And even to this day, I have to remind myself, whether I'm speaking on this camera or speaking in one-on-one or consulting a situation or bringing coaching to someone, that the weight of eternity doesn't rest on every word I'm saying. Even though some people can hang on every word I'm saying because they're needing an insight or needing something, right? It's taken me patient healing to let go of the pressure of this one. It's not life or death. But I equated it that way. And if I was to go back in time, I would do a lot of emphasis on letting go of the pressure and letting myself learn in the process and to actually enjoy the ability to communicate. I remember there were points in time where even doing the announcements in church, I would get so knotted up inside. And I remember there was one time I shared about it because I was at the point where that day the anxiety pattern had gotten to me so much, I was about to bawl my eyes out. I was just literally at the point where I was just going to start. And I remember sharing it with one of the overseers. And he just wasn't emotionally aware. He's like, don't worry about it. Kind of just missed it. He didn't know how much torture I was under inside. And so I was trying to share, and then I felt dumb for sharing it. I just locked that thing back up, and it's like, don't be stupid, Mark. Just do a better job. What's wrong with me? What's the matter with me? And I say this because a lot of pastors, preachers, teachers, people in ministry on staff, they're beating themselves up all day. It may not be over their sermons, but it's over what they're doing, what they're presenting, what they're sharing. Because that's the place we put all our emotional baggage into. So if the church grows, we're doing great. If the church doesn't, we're terrible. There's a wrestling battle that's going on. And the sense of what we attribute as success. And you're competing with your inner critic, and you're competing with maybe other people that you think might be better. And it's just this endless journey of dysfunction that I had to just go, I'm stepping out of this cycle. I've got to learn to be myself. I've got to learn. So I didn't focus my healing journey on the day of the speaking. I focused my journey on the day-to-day leading up to that. You know what? I'm speaking somewhere tomorrow. That's okay. Today doesn't have to look any different, because tomorrow there's going to be, God's going to do what he's going to do. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to share, and that's it. I had to learn over and over again a new rhythm. And then if there were days I was nervous, just embracing that. It's okay. It's okay. You're feeling this right now. You're learning. You're growing. I had to learn to experience God's love as a father, that I didn't have to perform for him. But I also had to learn to be loving and kind to myself in the process. The second thing that comes to mind when I think about my pastoral ministry experiences with anything related to church, anything related to ministry, or something spiritual. And I'm putting that in quotes because it'd be like my prayer life or devotions or any event I was going to that had a spiritual connection to it. All of a sudden, this light switch would go on inside of me, and I had to make sure my heart was just right. Right? Going about your day, do a bunch of things, right? But then whenever it was going to church or this event or this prayer meeting, and I would get super serious, and there was this intense religious pressure that would swell over me. And if I wasn't just right, it would interfere with whatever I was doing. It would just be like accusing me there. And so it would lead me into constant, like I got to prepare, I got to get my heart right. And that goes back to my childhood. It goes back to a lot of things I saw in church life. And it's like we live our life, and then when it's church, we got to act differently. We got it, like this weird religious somberness has to come over us. That's what was modeled for me. And that's why people act in a certain way in church and different in other areas of our life. It's like, why can't our life just be a continual journey? It's like something would switch in me. And so if it was Saturday night, it's like, Saturday night, I got to get my heart ready for tomorrow. It's going to be church, as though that's suddenly, all of a sudden, my life needs to be different. And it's a subconscious thing that I had to break free from, to just instead, Sunday, yes, it's a day where where we're gathering together. We also had Saturday services. I've Wednesday night services, right? Yes, these are special times to gather, but we come under this religious pressure to have to now be something different. And I think it's a bad recipe for people in ministry, because then it encourages that veneer that we have to put up. Oh, it's church time. Kind of get in that mode, church mode. What? And I know many of you will understand what I'm talking about here. I also carried an intensely high standard around anything I did. Now, people would appreciate that standard, but these expectations were high. And when you have high standards in church life, you put a God label to them. God wants our best. God wants excellence. And I find a lot of times we take what we do in church and we put a God label on it because that kind of enforces it. God wants our best. So you better do this. You better be that. You better do, those kind of things. And it creates a constant cycle of just right, never enough, just right, never enough. Now, should we give God our best? Certainly. We should give life our best, but it becomes something that torments us rather than cultivates healthy honor, healthy growth, healthy journey. It creates more anxiousness and adds a yoke of bondage on us. And so after any event that happened, whether it be when I was a youth pastor or later on when I would run church services and run the music. And after it was over, I would crash into like a depressive state because I felt like a failure. I felt like everything went wrong. And I was aware of everything I thought that was terrible. And It was just that just right and never enough of perfectionism that I teach on. And I had to learn how to embrace the learning, the journey, and to go, hey, it is what it is. It was great, and see the good things that were taking place versus always obsessing over flaws. Obsessors are always preoccupied with flaws because they can't enjoy the good that they see in front of them. I also found there was this overexertion of personal responsibility. I believe in healthy responsibility, taking responsibility for your life and your journey. But it was responsibility gone overboard because in any situation, in anything, I was always obsessively analyzing, what did I do wrong? What do I need to fix and change? Rather than sometimes going, hey, sometimes things don't work out. Sometimes, things are, not every service needs to be this intense, or not every gathering, or not everything needs to be a 12 on a scale of 1 to 10. But that was the expectation I held. And then it's like I was responsible. So if something wasn't growing, it's something I'm doing wrong. If something wasn't happening in a certain way, something I wasn't doing wrong. Now, to many perfectionists, people can admire what they produce, but it was under pressure and it opened the door for torment and anxiety and depression. And it just kept that obsessiveness going because it didn't allow me to learn in my journey. Because I was always trying to fix things. It didn't allow me to go, oh, okay, maybe that could be better. All right, I'll just kind of learn and be aware. See that kind of gentler, kinder approach to life. We're not giving ourselves any room to learn. And it's hindering our journey because then we're always preoccupied with making sure we avoid any mistakes. So for a long time, I responded to ministry and things that I felt weren't doing well, which was most things, was A, what am I doing wrong? Or B, what's something I'm not doing that I should be doing? So I was just wronging on myself, shoulding all over things, right? Just like focusing on what should I be? Oh, I should be doing that. It's exhausting. And it opened up condemnation over my life. Instead of seeing that God actually uses the whole package of who I am, even through my weakness and my struggle. In fact, in many of my weak areas, God shines great. But I didn't make any room for weakness. I had to hide weakness and couldn't be flawed. Didn't make mistakes. Can't present that all under the banner of this excellence that we portray. That's, in my opinion, many times eroding the mental and emotional health of the people in our congregation. I found that I did a lot of spinning over relationship conflict. It could be as simple as spinning about somebody being mad at me. There's people in the church, they just didn't like me. And you have to accept that in life. You have to accept that people won't like you. But I was preoccupied with people that didn't like me or disapproved of maybe certain things I did or the way I preached or the way I sang or songs I picked or whatever it was. There were times where I would pour myself into leaders and if maybe I saw their potential more than they did and maybe they didn't see it and I would keep pushing on myself. I got to do something. There's something different I got to do. It would always come back to me, responsibility on me, and I would spin over it. And then if there was conflict, I would always feel this compulsive urge. I got to confront. We got to talk. We got to get this right. And if somebody left, because in ministry, there's a lot of turnover. If you're a pastor or you're in some kind of leadership role, you have an exponential level of relationship turnover than the average person. And it's painful. You just do. Even to this day, I go through aspects of it where you pour into somebody's life and then just overnight they kind of disappear and, you go, wait, what happened? And I remember for so long, I would take it personally. Like, hey, what's the deal? What is it me? Is it what would I do? Right? And turn the mirror on myself in an unhealthy way. I remember many times in my life where some conversations and meetings, I say some, but there's a large number of them I can remember back to that were incredibly toxic, unhealthy, downright bitter. There were a few times where I think my physical safety was threatened, for sure. And I was so compulsive about making sure I did the right thing. I would plow through and make sure every response was okay, and make sure everything was okay. And I never allowed myself room to just heal through really the traumatic experience of some of those meetings. Some of them were so intense. And I would be struggling with like this anxiousness or symptoms where I'm going, what's going on with this? Why am I feeling so all over the place? And I realized I wasn't giving myself room to heal through some of the things I'd been through and give myself some space to process that. And it was showing up in other symptoms, and it was showing up in intense obsessiveness or intense anxiousness or maybe depression or irritability. I didn't give myself room because I was always focused on do the right thing, say the right thing. If they leave, just say the honorable thing. Don't get mad. Don't lose your cool. Just make sure you do everything right. And it's understandable. You want to do the right thing, but it was under duress. It was under pressure, and it didn't give myself room to just process. I mean, can you feel the pressure of you as I'm talking? I think one of the things that would be an overarching battleground was never being able to settle, because even in the sense of like, Mark, there's nothing to fuss over. I was always checking for any disturbance to be bothered over. And I had to learn much later in my ministry work that I was so used to at times responding to drama out there, drama in here, that I didn't know what to do with peace. And so I had to learn to starve the compulsion for checking and learn to practice what it means living in peace and the peace of God. And so much of this is what I lay out in my book, The OCD Healing Journey. It's what I'm teaching, a community I'm building, an online community of people I'm building who want to live with greater mental, emotional, and relationship health. You can check that out by clicking on the community button at markdejesus.com. Was this a blessing to you? Did this encourage you? My own transparency and vulnerability of what I've worked through. These are just a few. There's so much more, but I narrowed it down to just a few. If this video blessed you, click like, subscribe, share it with those that you love. Subscribe to my email newsletter where I'll give you updates. You can also support these videos that if they're a blessing to your life, you can go to the donate button, markdejesus.com. You can do a one-time or a regular amount of any amount. It's a blessing. Well, Lord willing and the creek don't rise. This is your brother from another mother saying I'll be back with more insights for your healing and freedom journey. But in the meantime, I'm out.